Computer, sure. All right. Does it say recording on your screen?
It does.
Okay. Let me go back to my Word document. Okay. So, do you guys,
okay, I see it.
just in general, what's your take on differentiation? Like, do you feel confident in it? Do you do it frequently? I'm just curious how you guys.
I try.
I think I'm evolving. Like, I try to, but time's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I teach second grade, so I do a lot of small group work, and so in nature that's differentiated because the way that they're grouped and the skills that we're working on are all different. But as far as like science and social studies differentiation, I don't have a lot of experience or confidence with that yet. And differentiation, like we've read about, that goes a little deeper. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm 100% doing that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Well, and most of the time they're not identified at second grade. You know, we don't identify them till, you know, later on. So
Right.
Yeah, in our county we identify in third grade.
Mhm.
But I mean, I have one who is without a doubt like should already be identified, should probably be in fourth grade. But
yeah, I think there's always those really high kids that do stand out. And that is the challenge. So I think this helps us to kind of develop something for those students.
Yeah.
yeah.
I've always struggled with differentiation because I teach fourth grade, so I have almost 30 students, and so it's hard to differentiate in general because I have so many groups and I have so many kids in each group.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time they get to fourth grade, I mean, at least the way that my school groups kids, like I know there was a previous reading where it was talking about clustering kids where you put like, you know, you have kids, you sort them at the end of the year in those 5 groups, and then you just put 3 groups of students together. Like my school, just you get a hodgepodge of everything. So I've got kids on a first grade level, and I've got a kid who's on almost an 8th grade level.
Yeah.
So you don't cluster at all? Like your AIG kids aren't clustered into one or two classes?
We have there's 5 fourth grades, and every one of us has a certain number of AIG kids.
Yeah, that's generally the way. I mean, I've always taught third grade and fourth grade before this year. So we don't cluster. We actually try when we group the kids, which we always try to be fair, and like we get to pick who the classes are for next year. So we think about like which teacher do you think would work really well with this kid based on their.
Yeah.
But we try to group them out, and I don't know if this is best practice now, but like we start with the high kids, and we're like, okay, this one needs a high kid, this one needs a high kid, this one needs a high kid. And I don't know if that actually works for us or against us. Based on our reading, it works against us, and especially the kids.
Right.
Yes, we don't. I teach fourth grade. Ours is clustered into 2. We have 6. They're clustered into 2 classes.
Okay.
So that does make it easier for planning purposes and for differentiating for those, because they do have groups that can, you know, they're not the 1 or 2 in the class. There's, you know, 7 or 8.
Right. Which I think it makes sense to do that, because not only do those kids get to be together and they get to have that social, emotional connection with each other, but it's also easier on the teacher because you just have less students that have needs that need met. And it's already like on my agenda to like send that out to my principal to see if she'd be interested in having our kids group like that next year, because then it also makes it easier on the AIG teacher, because that's less teachers that they have to interrupt their schedule. And at least the AIG teacher at my school already talks about how some teachers, you know, she feels like teachers don't like her because she comes and takes kids out of the class and interrupts their schedule. So she already is frustrated with that anyway. So I think it just would be easier in general. So I don't. After I read that chapter in this book, I really just felt passionate about it.
Yeah, I'm the same way, where I wanted to speak to my principal about, see if he would be interested in doing that at all. I think it would be better for the kids. So,
as a general, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was going to move on to another topic.
I was going to say, as a general ed teacher, it was really nice because when that cluster was pulled out, that was a great time for me to work with my low kids.
Yeah.
And, and do things that they didn't need to be there for.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of types of differentiation do you guys do? So when I think differentiation, my mind automatically goes to my low kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're the kids that need the most modifications or that have like an IEP that requires requires differentiated content. So I've always just kind of been like, oh, my AIG kids, you finished your work? Okay, here's this extra thing.
right.
But, especially in this cycle, it kind of seems like that's really not what differentiation is even about.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I try to differentiate. I try to have the groups. I try to have the extra work. But I think I need to look at what my extra work actually is, so that it isn't just extra work, that it's meaningful.
Exactly.
I differentiate my homework for my low kids versus my high kids. Like different spelling words, different math, different reading that fits their needs. But my biggest problem when I run into it is just organization / the amount of time it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Just making sure that I am doing something that's actually worthwhile for all of the kids. And that's where the clustering would be helpful too.
I have this kid in my class who, he's like the only gifted kid I feel like I've ever met that's like truly gifted. And so I've started giving him work that's like a great, like in math, like when we started working on multiplication, like a 2-digit by 1-digit or 2-digit by 2-digit, like I, instead of making him the 5th grade standard, which is 3-digit times a 2-digit number, and let him work on that. And once I saw that he mastered that, then I moved him up into the next level, and I kept just pushing him until he got to a point where he was like, whoa, this is crazy, I can't do this. And he has started asking me, hey, is there like something else I can do? Like, is there, what's like a more advanced type of work like this, especially in math? And it's really, I feel like that's really helping me push him. So, Lindsay, what county do you work in?
New Hanover.
Okay. And Lori, you work in Onslow, right?
Yeah, I'm in Onslow. Mm-hmm.
So we have, we adopted iReady in Onslow.
Yeah, we're using iReady.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
My AIG kid grew like 60 points on his beginning of the year to mid-year diagnostic.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and mine grew a lot too. It's interesting. I have some kids that really enjoy, but we have like at our school, we have to have 45 minutes in reading and math every week. It's required. So some, because it's one of those like you have to get this done before you can move on to this.
Yeah.
Because it's put on me that they have to do that. They really resist it, even though I do think it is a good program that's aligned with the standards and where they actually are. But I mean, that's a form of differentiation in itself, because we use the diagnostic and it places them right where they need to be with the skills that they need. So that is nice. And I do think that's a true form of differentiation, because it's really is working on their level based on their diagnostic. If they're in 2nd grade and they test on a 5th grade level, they're working on a 5th grade level or 6th grade level work, whatever skills they hadn't mastered yet.
Yeah, it reminds me of years ago when we did accelerated math.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that, because we would, if they would finish all of the, at the time I was teaching 5th grade, if they finished all the 5th grade standards, we'd go on and do the 6th grade. And I had kids one year that were going over to the middle school to print and scan 7th grade math and 5th grade. So I feel like this is very similar to that, in that it will accelerate them if they're ready.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of exciting because we haven't had anything like that in a few years.
I just love that it automatically exposes them to things that they've proved they're ready for.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to think like, oh, this kid's ready to multiply decimals. Like, it automatically places them in that. So I love how it's just tailored individually. Because sometimes it's hard for me to think, well, what could I pull for this kid if he's already mastered long division? What's something
What should come next?
more challenging that I could push him to? So at least we have things in place that already account for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's good for enrichment, and I also think it's good for remediation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's good for on level. I think it kind of meets the needs. We also got Education Galaxy, which is very similar, and the kids actually enjoy it more. And it is differentiated based on, they take the diagnostic. My biggest problem that I run into is that I have kids that rush.
Yeah.
So then when they take that diagnostic, they have no interest in doing that. They want to get to the stuff. So then they miss questions that they wouldn't normally miss, or they rush through it, and it does flag it, which is nice. But then they have to do it all over again. I don't know. There's definitely flaws, but I do like it.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys think that, I guess where we already are, do you think those are effective approaches for differentiating gifted students? Or do you think that there's room for improvement?
I struggled with, after reading about like the depth and complexity, am I giving them busy work or am I really challenging them? And I'm really kind of doing a mind shift with that now, and just really thinking, okay, is that going to challenge them or is that just going to keep them busy?
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of choice boards, which I feel like can be very differentiated. That's actually what I ended up doing for this challenge, because I teach 2nd grade, so she definitely isn't a level 2 self-directed learner yet. She's definitely still a level 1, no matter how smart she is. She just hasn't been exposed to that level of responsibility yet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I really had to think about, on the choice board for her that I was making, how much, like you said, depth and complexity, and how much of Bloom's taxonomy and how much of Kaplan and those words are really being used, and how are they being used appropriately? Is it meeting my essential question? Just, there's so many, I feel like there's so many things to think about, and there's not one right answer to check your work against, to be like, okay, I'm on the right track for making sure that I am appropriately and effectively differentiating for this child.
Right.
Yep.
You were mentioning earlier about differentiating for science and social studies, and I also feel like I'm just not good at differentiating that. And I feel like it's because when I think about differentiating, I'm thinking about content.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's in the Orange Book, chapter 3, and there's a list of like product choices.
Uh-huh.
So I tried to implement that this week. Like, I just kind of just took a leap of faith. And so my kids have been learning about the Lost Colony in North Carolina. And so in the visual category and the technology category, I had my group, they had this packet, this like CSI packet that they had to complete. And when they finished, they had to do a project. And so I gave them, I actually brought this book to school, and I said, you can pick any product from either one of these columns, and they were like, I can pick anything. I was like, yeah. So I kind of left it super open, which is, I'm really kind of a control freak. But these girls like chose to do this map, and it was amazing. Like, all the detail that they put into it. They had a little legend. They actually like took things from the text and the pictures that they saw and put it into this amazing product. And I
Right.
was thinking, like, why don't I do this more often?
Did they work in groups?
They did. And
I really like that idea.
it
Yeah,
was really cool. Because then I had another group that they were like, oh, they made, like it says presentation. So they made a PowerPoint that just kind of explained, like, what happened to the lost colony and what they think might have happened and what evidence there is. And it was just super cool to, like, not really have any guidelines and just let them go.
Yeah, I've actually, since all the reading, and I think this is answering number 3 for how has your thinking changed, like intentionally planning some things, but also I'm gonna do, like, I've been thinking about doing like a genius hour on Fridays. We already have the computer, and using the list of products like that and saying, okay, so pick something that you are really passionate about, that you want to learn more about, and leaving it open-ended like that, and saying, you know, you have the computers right now, so you can do that research, and then I can help them with those skills.
Right.
But they have an hour to work on and learn more about what they want to learn about. And I'm still in the planning, like, how much do I plan to start with, because they are really young? How much do I guide them, not guide some of them? You know, they need to learn a lot of things about doing stuff like this. I
You'll
think
be surprised how quickly they learn how to use the software. I started implementing for vocabulary homework. My kids make a PowerPoint every week. And I just had to show them, here's how you add a slide, here's how you change the color. And now they figured out how to make animations and download pictures and all this other, like, really cool stuff. So I imagine, like, at first it might be a little frustrating, but once you see kids that really do well at it, have them help kids who aren't very good at it.
Yeah. It's like one of those times where you wish you could split yourself into one. I don't know how many times y'all say, y'all, I'm only one person, give me 1 second.
Right.
Every day.
I'm like, give me 1 second. And I have a couple that just demand, like, want my attention all day.
Yeah.
However they can get it. So.
Yep.
Well, kind of piggybacking off what you said for number 3, like I said earlier, my thinking is differentiation is only the content. But after reading and, you know, this whole content process, product, learning environment stuff, like, it's crazy. I mean, I feel like after learning about that, I feel like I actually differentiate way more than I thought I did.
Right.
You know, sometimes I'll, like, for learning environment, like, I'll let my kids work outside or work in a hallway where they don't have direct access to it, and they have more of that independent and collaboration time. Process is really hard for me. Like I said, I'm a control freak. Like, I like things just like this, and I don't want it to change.
Yeah.
Right.
I know that it'll get done, and you'll learn what you're supposed to learn if you do it this way. So I'm learning to let go of that, especially for my higher kids that I trust. And this assignment that I did for cycle 3, I really kind of, like, took out the process and made that, like, more student centered. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, I think when you take the time to really sit and think about what you're planning for your students, and, like, the thinking processes that we learned about in chapter, I believe it was 10 of our original textbook that we read for this, just all the different ways to teach them how to think differently.
Yeah.
Because I think that's hard for teachers sometimes to even think about adding into their curriculum. I think we do a lot of it naturally, but some of the more in-depth, certain strategies, certain names, I want to incorporate that, especially more with the gifted, and intentionally plan it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, intentionality is definitely important, because if you're not intentional, then you end up having a product or an assignment that's meaningless. And that's what I think, Lori, you were saying earlier about, you want differentiation to be meaningful. I struggle with that myself.
Yeah, I want it to be meaningful and not just busy work.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think I have been doing just to be like, oh, you're finished. I mean, a lot of what I've always gone to with my gifted students, oh, you're finished, now read.
Yeah.
Right.
Finished early, you can read, and so they need to have, reading is great, but they need to have something that is pushing them further than just sitting and reading.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Now, more times than I care to admit, I'm like, oh, you're done. Let's see. Well, you could do, read, or you could get on,
You can read or write, or get on iReady,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And so really thinking ahead as to, okay, this one is probably going to finish early. What can they do? Or,
well, and I think having these self-directed, or these contracts, it could be one of the things that, hey, you're working on it while we are working on this. But if you do finish early and do quality work, then you can work on this contract when you have extra time.
I found with my gifted kid in my class that I have several gifted students, but this one kid, I really think he's truly gifted. He just meets a lot of criteria that we've learned about, and he's just very catches on to things really quickly. He's just has a really just good mind. But for him, once I give him a task and he knows it's different, he takes it and runs with it.
Mm-hmm. So they thrive on it.
Right. So the more that I do that, I feel like the more that I'm actually pushing him, and really it's less me pushing him and more of him pushing himself.
Right.
Which I think is awesome.
Well, and I think that I were always worried about the other kids being like, well, why does she get to do this by herself? But if you kind of intentionally plan activities, not just learning contracts like this for your higher kids, but also some remediation that's a learning contract, they don't have to know that it can still be engaging and exciting and them doing something different than other kids.
That's a good idea. I often borrow from the EC world, and I just say, everybody gets what they need, and sometimes that's different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have kids too that are like, hey, can I do what he's doing? Can I get?
Yeah, you don't want to be like, no, because you don't know what you're doing. You can't do this by yourself.
Right.
I mean, not that we would ever say that, but
at the same time, I'm like, honey, you just failed your last test. I don't think you're quite ready.
Right.
But at least the reason I wanted to do this certification is because my gifted kids are just the ones that I feel like I do the least for. Because it's oh, you already mastered the content. Okay, well, I don't have time to focus on you. I got to focus on this kid who has no idea what he's
grade levels below and doesn't have an IEP yet.
Exactly, because that's the kid that my admin is going to say, well, why isn't he proficient?
Right, because that's what they focus on.
Right, they're not going to say, why is your gifted kid in the red? Because he's still passing.
Right. Or why didn't your gifted kid grow? Right. You know what I mean? Because gifted kids are hard to show that growth in sometimes, but it's just as important to show gifted growth as it is to show, those students.
Absolutely.
And I think that they do in our system that doesn't matter as much, and I think that's really unfortunate. And I think all the focus is on our EC lower kids, because there's so much pressure, it trickles down.
I agree.
Where the focus is.
I agree that seems to be where the focus is, and I felt like my kids growing up were AIG, and I just feel like sometimes they were used to tutor other kids or read when you're done, or
which I'm super guilty of doing. I'm like, oh, you've got this, go help this kid, instead of working on something that's going to push you further. Simply time-wise, and when I'm the only teacher in the room, it helps me, and that's not their job.
Right.
And this course in particular has really helped me to think differently about what is right and fair for those kids.
Yeah, same. 'Cause I was thinking, well, what's the big deal? I mean, if he knows it and he can teach it to somebody else, then that's
I
good.
mean, who's losing here, but then you realize that they're losing.
Dr. Housen wrote a comment on one of my assignments and was like, be careful with that, because that's not, gifted kids go to school to learn. They don't go to school to teach.
Exactly.
Well, and some don't mind, and I don't think it's a bad thing once in a while, but when you're constantly put in that position, I've had parents in the past say, my child has had this happen where she doesn't want to be the teacher. Please don't do that. Yeah. And I've respected that,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, like, they still want to learn and be a kid. And they still want to be challenged, especially like we obviously have our underachievers and stuff, but most of the time I feel like gifted kids, like, they want that challenge. They want to be pushed. They want to see how far they can go. And it's really our responsibility to give them that opportunity.
Well, and I do think they become underachievers when they don't get that.
Agreed.
And I believe that my son is a senior in high school, and God bless America, he was highly gifted in math and reading, and I say was, he still is, but he wasn't pushed and challenged, and then it became underachieving. And so, like, this high school has been a struggle, just because he got in the habit of things being easy and not being challenged and not learning how to push through challenges. And then when things became challenging, I think the underachieving, like, oh my God, I don't want to fail, so I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
Because I'm so used to it. And I think we have to prevent that for them starting at the elementary age.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So how would differentiation for gifted kids be different if your entire curriculum was designed around essential questions?
Lord, I don't know. Essential questions that I've been so ingrained that essential questions are not like these essential questions. They are like there's an answer, like that's what we're supposed to be teaching, the answer to these essential questions. So I'm sure the curriculum would be so much better, so much more meaningful, but it's just so hard for me to wrap my brain about it.
More, I think it's what I think of more as like a big idea. It's kind of, but I was reading, I think it was, I'm not sure which country. I want to say Finland, but there's a country that's doing away with subjects altogether. And they're just going to go with like themes and things. And I thought that was really intriguing, and I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to work.
Right. Yeah. I always thought essential questions, like, I don't know if you guys are required to have like I can statements.
Supposedly, yes.
I pretty much just rewrite the standard as an I can statement, because ultimately that's what I want them to be able to do.
Right.
That an essential question is that, like, the standard as a question. So one of the links that she posted in the reading was like this website that was a chapter from a book about essential questions, and it reminded me of like backwards planning, where like, here's what I want you to know, how do I put that into a question where this is kind of what you go for. And it's not really, I was just surprised that it's not, like you said, Lindsay, it's not like an actual answer that they get.
It shouldn't have just one answer, is what they said.
It's open-ended.
But at the same time, in my standard, if this is what I want them to learn, then I feel like
I know, it was kind of mind, like, I understand the point. I think just 9 years into teaching, like, that's essential questions are the standards rephrased into a question.
Right. So I think that's more of a guiding standard. What we think of an essential standard is more, or essential question is more of a guiding question now.
Right.
That falls under that overarching essential question. So the essential question is something they can come back to, like, maybe all year long. Maybe,
From the reading that chapter with that link, the 7 questions that were like the guidelines for were helpful. And I can pick, using those guidelines, which of the choices that were given to us was an essential question or not.
Right.
When it came to making my own, I was like, oh God, this is so hard.
When I feel like in like math, for example, I feel like it would be hard to write an essential question that doesn't have like a specific answer.
Right, based on the nature of math as it is.
Because at least in like science and social studies, it's like you can ask like exploratory type questions or opinion questions where, like that website said stuff like, is this fair? Or,
right.
I mean, that's how I modeled my questions for the assignment we had to do this weekend. But I don't know. I don't feel very comfortable with essential questions based off just this assignment, this cycle so far.
Yeah, I feel like I need more to completely understand it.
Yeah. I feel like I need more practice and more time to just think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it's like I emailed Dr. Gallagher because I need validation that I'm doing the right thing. Yep. Like, I need someone to be like, yes, that's you're on the right track. And then if I came up with more and I was told, okay, you're on the right track, then I'd feel better about it, I guess.
And that's how I felt like I floundered too. Like I didn't know if what I was doing was right, and I couldn't come up with activities that I wasn't sure if they were challenging or just busy.
Yes.
I struggled really bad to the point where I didn't get it in on time.
Yeah.
Just because I had to step back and think about it. And I thought, if this is how AIG kids feel because they're unsure and they are perfectionists and they want to get it right and they want to know, maybe that'll give me a deeper understanding of their struggle. So,
right.
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't for nothing, but it stressed me out.
Me too.
Yeah.
I got to the point I was like, you know what? Whatever. It's good or it's not. Just send it.
Yeah, I got to that point too where I was like, I can sit and think about this all day long, but I've got to get it done. I've spent hours on it. Yeah. And I hope it's more for feedback at this point. Yeah. Like I would like feedback. Absolutely. Not for a grade, but for like, am I on the right track, doing the right thing for these kids? Which ones would I need to reword or do differently? I don't know. Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for some constructive feedback, just to help me along this journey here.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever given a student a contract before for a particular assignment?
I have not. This is a first.
Yeah, well, the contract in my class is like, I'm the teacher, and here's your assignment that you're going to do.
Right. I've done when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and it's not necessarily, I don't know. See if y'all think you would consider this a contract. I would have children that were higher readers that didn't necessarily need to sit down in a reading group with me every day. They would have like something written out that said by this day you need to have chapters 1 and 2 read.
Right.
4. So here are the activities for you to do. I don't know how. And so it was in theory a contract, but not necessarily maybe as good of a contract as it should have been.
Right. And you probably don't like sit down and.
No, and they would do like the reading literature circle stuff, and sometimes I would go in and, the roles would change each time.
So it was like something they signed off on.
Yeah, and it was something that, I kept track of, making sure they were keeping up. But then, of course, I've got those gifted students who, at that point, who were not necessarily good students. Mm-hmm. Why am I having to read this with these kids? Why, the pushback. Yeah. Right. So I had some behavior management issues with it, where I needed to be sitting there with them in order for it to get done, or one kid kind of. So.
Did they have choice with what they were reading, or was it something that you kind of?
Yeah, I had them choose between several novel sets.
And they still
read the books. The problem with that, of course, is that there was like 4 or 5 of them, and not all 4 or 5 of them agree on which one to do. So we went with majority. I guess in hindsight, I could, let 2 do one and 3 do another, but just for management reasons and kind of like doing it for the first time with this class, with planning everything and trying to make sure I went with one book.
Yeah, I've done the same, and I wondered if there would have been less behavior problems if they had been able to select, not what the majority wanted, but what they wanted, and if that would have made a difference.
And perhaps it would be more effective if they weren't doing a literature group. I mean, that some kids could do the same and work together, but in hindsight and everything that we've read, student choice, it should be their choice. And they can have choices of activities to work from and show what they've learned. So I've done one, but not that great, I feel like,
Yeah, the only contract I've done every year, I do like a multiplication test at the beginning of the year to see how many problems they can do in like 10 minutes, multiplication facts. And then we kind of come up with a contract of how are they going to practice, how are they going to learn them, and then they sign it, I sign it, their parents sign it, and then, we kind of, we don't do a whole lot with it after that, but it's kind of a way to say, hey, this is important. You need to learn your multiplication facts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, do something like that with behavior. Like we'd make a behavior contract as a class, and all my kids sign it, and we talk about consequences and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as like for a particular assignment for one particular kid, it's definitely something I would love to do. And I think the contract itself, like, and the fact that the kid's like involved with it, and it's laid out expectations, like the task and all that. I feel like it makes whatever they're doing like more official.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it shows them like you're doing something different, but it's equally as important as what I'm doing with the rest of the class.
I really like that you have your ducks in a row if you're admin or a parent is saying, well, why are they doing this and not what the rest of the class is doing? I kind of like that.
I do too. And I hadn't thought about that. There was a couple assignments where Dr. G was like, well, why would you pick this? Or what, like at least the compacting assignment, like what evidence do you have? And for me, it's kind of like, well, I know this kid's smart. Well, how do you prove that? Well, I just think smart. You know what I mean? So
right.
I love that accountability because that like covers me. And this kid's doing something different because he has demonstrated proficiency in A, B, and C ways. And
well, and I think another thing that I thought was really cool that I've never really thought about that Dr. G seems to, and the reading is explaining to the child why they're doing something different.
Yeah.
Like clarifying with them and including them in those decision-making processes and not saying, you're doing this because I told you you're doing it.
Right.
I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing it because you already know this information, and I think that you should move on, and this is why, and here,
Right. I feel like maybe this is just me, or maybe it's Onslow County, but I feel like Bloom's taxonomy is, I don't know if that's like going old or like we use the depth of knowledge, like level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4.
Yep.
I can't remember the last time I heard like an administrator or a coach at my school mention Bloom's.
No, I'm hearing more about Hattie and Marzano lately.
Yeah, so that was interesting to me, and especially like I don't know if you noticed, but you know how like a couple years ago Bloom's like became updated, they like changed stuff. Like this book has the old Blooms in it.
Yeah.
There's I think this book has the new Blooms. So I was trying to, like in my assignment, I was trying to, in my reflection, trying to figure out like, well, what level is this? And it seemed like it was one level in one book and another level in another book.
Yeah.
And I feel like I struggle ever reaching like the top of the chart.
Yeah, I tried in my choice board to mainly use the top tier, like apply, create, evaluate, analyze. But honestly, it's like teaching them new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
In the meantime, when we're trying to teach them new ways of thinking, it's teaching us new ways of thinking, which, like you said earlier, I think, Lori, like, oh, is this how it feels for them? I really genuinely felt that way too when I was doing it. Like, and the open-endedness of it does not feel safe to me.
Agreed.
Not for the assignment, or for the assignment, for doing it. So if we keep them in these boxes, then that's not going to feel safe for them either to explore and try new things and not have this terrible fear of being wrong or not perfect.
Right, because I've had gifted students that are so hyper-focused on their grade, and am I doing this right because I have to get a good grade? And I kind of got that feeling while I was doing this. So, like,
me too.
Out of that comfort zone where they experience this at a younger age, maybe, so they can get more comfortable with being open-ended and thinking differently, I think would be a benefit to them.
Yeah, agreed. Well, it really helps that there's like different types of products that are listed for each level. I mean, realistically, you're not going to reach every kid at the highest level with every content, every topic that you teach.
Right.
And not every topic is catered to do like a create. I mean, I guess you probably could in some way, but I don't know. I got to change my mindset that I'm selling my kids short if I don't put them all the way at the top. It's just ready for that. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Bloom's. I think we hit most of the questions. You guys have any other thoughts or comments?
No, I do think that the past two challenges that we've done are probably the most beneficial that I feel like I can turn around and use tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, it's actual, like, put into practice.
Right.
And I mean, I think Dr. G said it pretty often is, do one thing at a time. Don't expect to do it all. So I'm trying to not be hard or critical on myself and feel like I'm failing, but just kind of focus on one thing. And luckily right now, I really just have one very gifted. I have some that are advanced, and I'm trying to meet their needs through pre-tests and things like that. But right now I'm trying to focus on the one and making sure that she's getting what she needs, and then I feel like I can trickle down.
Right. Same.
Just trying to get my practice and get better.
Same. I'd rather just like make a mistake and just one student be involved.
Right.
I know, like, if I give him an assignment that just is meaningless, that ends up being meaningless, then I know he's not going to be too far off track.
Right.
He catches up. So he's kind of like my trial and error kid, but so far,
yeah. Well, and I think we have to experiment and take risks as educators and make some mistakes.
Right.
And learn from them, because that's what we're teaching our kids to do.
Yep.
As a lifelong learning process. And I think it's so scary for us to do that, because what we're doing is so important, and how we do it is so important. And
it's all time sensitive. You know what I mean? Because we only have them for a certain amount of time, and it's our business to do what we can for them in the amount of time that we have them for. I take that extremely seriously, because I feel like I only have this much to make an impact, and I have to do what I can in that amount of time to make a difference for them.
Do any of y'all ever feel like you need more time in the day?
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
Well, because I overplan and I get like all these things I'm really excited about, and then I have to get in like the certain things that I'm told I have to get in.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I need like one more hour, you know, with them that's not filled with. We already have such a short amount of time for lunch, and no specials should be taken away, and recess shouldn't be taken away.
Right.
But I need like one more hour.
Agreed.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I feel like there's so much more I could do.
I think so too.
Well, we just have to reflect and refine what we do every day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This course has been super helpful in helping me reflect, because sometimes I'm like, ooh, I should have not done that. Or I
Right.
should've done that a little bit better.
Yep.
So,
It's making me look forward to the summer. I've already talked with some of my teammates about getting together and kind of looking. We have to do the priority standards, and we're doing the pre-test. So kind of developing those activities for the ones that already have shown mastery on that pre-test. I'm kind of getting more ideas towards what we can do with that. And I think our AIG kids often fit into that, that category. And they already come to us knowing so much. So what can we do to, you know, deepen their learning?
right.
It's just,
I think that's one of the most important things that I've taken from this, and I knew it anyway, but it's not fair to waste their time going over and making them practice and making them test on material that they've already mastered.
And then like intentionally not calling on them when they raise their hand, answer a question, to give other kids a chance, and
Right.
give the kids a blurter, like.
Yes.
yeah.
And so excited to tell you the answer because they know it, you know.
And they know that they know it. They're not just wanting
guessing, like, I got this.
Can't tell you how many times spelling has been corrected, like writing on the board really ever.
Yeah, and I think it's so important that we don't take that away from them, that enthusiasm, or like be embarrassed because, or just you hush because I need these other kids to know, you know?
That's why I think this contracting business is so important, because it does give them like their own unique learning opportunity that is special just to them and hones in on whatever their strengths are.
And then I feel like it gives the students that are on grade level / lower a chance to answer the questions that you're asking that these kids already know the answer to. They're working on something else to find an answer to something they don't know, you know, so it gives these other guys a chance to rise up. And
they can shine a little bit more when they're not under the
or they just are relying on this person. They know this person's always going to answer for them, so they don't have to think about it.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of kids just won't even take the time to try to think about how to answer it, because they already know somebody over here is going to raise their hand and get the question right.
Right.
So, yep.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, you guys have anything else, then let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording and I will send it to you.
Okay.
Whenever I figure it out. So, I hope you ladies have a nice week.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.